The sun dipped low behind the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the poisoned earth as Kale and Iran stood before the rusted hatch, half buried beneath the cracked, toxic soil. The air was thick with the acrid scent of decay and chemical rot, a bitter reminder of the world they had lost beneath the floating cities. Kale wiped grime from his brow, his fingers trembling slightly as he traced the faded markings on the corroded metal surface. "This has to be it," he murmured, exchanging a glance with Iran, whose thin frame was tense beneath his worn lab coat. Iran nodded, adjusting his cracked glasses as he knelt beside the hatch, producing a rusted crowbar from his pack. The silence around them was oppressive, broken only by the distant groan of the city above and the faint whisper of the poisoned wind through skeletal trees. The hatch resisted their efforts at first, the metal protesting with a harsh screech that echoed unnervingly in the quiet. With a final heave, it gave way, exposing a narrow stairwell descending into darkness. Kale flicked on a battered flashlight, the beam slicing through the gloom to reveal cold, steel walls streaked with rust and stained with years of neglect. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of mold and forgotten secrets. As they descended, the faint hum of dying electronics greeted them, a ghostly echo of the world that once thrived within these walls. At the bottom, they stepped into a small chamber cluttered with outdated scientific equipment, cracked monitors, and stacks of yellowing documents. Flickering fluorescent lights overhead sputtered to life, casting eerie shadows that danced across faded photographs pinned to the walls, images of lush forests, smiling faces, and machinery humming with promise. But the smiles were ghosts now, memories swallowed by the relentless spread of poison that had consumed the Earth's surface. Iran approached a console, fingers trembling as he brushed dust from a keyboard. This is the research facility," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "The one they tried to erase." Kale scanned the room cautiously, his eyes catching a cracked screen displaying a timeline of experiments and environmental readings. The data was damning. Chemical tests, radiation levels, and coded reports detailing efforts to manipulate the planet's atmosphere, all pointing to a catastrophic failure concealed beneath layers of propaganda. "They knew," Kale said quietly, voice edged with disbelief and fury. "They knew what they were doing to the Earth." Iran swallowed hard, pulling a battered journal from a crate. "I was part of this," he confessed, voice barely audible. "I helped design the atmospheric stabilizers, but something went wrong. The experiments accelerated the poisoning instead of halting it. The government covered it up, blamed natural causes, and kept feeding the floating cities while the surface died." Kale's heart pounded as the weight of the truth settled over him like a shroud. He had suspected corruption, but this betrayal cut deeper than any sky raid or city collapse. The rulers they had resisted were architects of the apocalypse, their hunger for control overriding the survival of the planet itself. "We have to tell them," Kale said, determination hardening his voice. "Everyone needs to know what's beneath their feet." Iran nodded, though his eyes betrayed the torment of a man haunted by his own complicity. "But if they find out, the city will fight to keep this secret. They'll do anything to protect their power." Outside, a distant rumble shook the ground, a grim reminder that the city's foundations were crumbling even as secrets surfaced. Kale glanced upward through a cracked ventilation grate, the steel skeleton of the floating metropolis groaning in protest. "Then we fight," Kale said, fists clenched. "For the Earth. For all of us." Together, they gathered what evidence they could carry, sealing the hatch behind them as the shadows of the bunker swallowed the last flicker of light. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and sacrifice, but Kale felt a spark of hope ignite within the bleakness. The truth was their weapon now, a beacon in the iron skies, guiding them toward a reckoning long overdue. As they climbed back into the poisoned wasteland, the first distant crack of collapsing steel echoed through the air, a stark herald of the battles to come. Kale's gaze hardened, the weight of history and future pressing upon him in equal measure. The secrets beneath steel were out, and there would be no turning back. The city was dying, but so was the lie. And from the ashes, something new might yet rise. Kale sank down onto the twisted metal frame of the ruined sky platform, the cold seeping through the thin fabric of his scavenger gear. The distant hum of failing generators mingled with the sharp whistle of the wind, cutting through the hollow skeleton of the city's outer edge. His eyes, shadowed and heavy, fixed on the cracked horizon where the poisoned earth stretched endlessly beneath the iron skies. The sky was a dull, sickly gray, the sun a pale ghost behind layers of toxic clouds. The silence around him was thick, an oppressive weight that pressed against his chest. But inside Kale, a storm raged far fiercer. Memories surged unbidden, the screaming alarms of the last sky raid, the blaze that swallowed his family's home, the choking smoke, the desperate hands reaching out before silence swallowed their voices. He shut his eyes tightly, trying to hold back the tide, but the images came anyway. His mother's tear-streaked face, his sister's terrified eyes, the cruel laughter of raiders as they tore through what little sanctuary remained. A bitter taste rose in his throat, and his hands clenched into fists. He was alone here, abandoned by the world and by fate. The weight of loss was a constant ache, a shadow that clung to him no matter how far he fled through the sky ruins. He had learned to survive by shutting down the parts of himself that ached too deeply, but tonight the walls were crumbling. A soft rustling broke the silence. Kale's head jerked up, heart pounding. From the shadows emerged Lyra, her short-cropped red hair catching what little light filtered through the wreckage. Her eyes, fierce and unwavering, met his without hesitation. She stepped closer, the grease-stained fabric of her jumpsuit whispering against the metal floor. "Kale," she said gently, her voice steady but warm, "you don't have to carry it alone." He looked away, swallowing hard. "It's not that simple." "I know," she replied, crouching beside him, "but you're not alone. We all carry scars. And we fight because we remember what we lost." Her words were a lifeline tossed across the chasm of his despair. Slowly, Kale let the tension in his shoulders ease, allowing a flicker of hope to pierce the gloom. For the first time in a long while, he let himself lean on someone else. They sat together in silence, the distant rumble of the city's failing systems, a grim reminder of the fragile world they inhabited. Lyra broke the quiet, her voice low but fierce. "We have a fight ahead, Kale. The city's crumbling and Ralvik's tightening his grip, but we can't let the past chain us. We have to move forward together." Kale met her gaze, the fire in her eyes igniting a spark within his own. "Together," he echoed, a tentative promise. Later, in the dim safety of the rebels' safe house, a flickering fire cast long shadows on the walls. Kale and Lyra exchanged stories, not just of battles and losses, but of hopes buried deep beneath the wreckage. Their voices were low, laden with the weight of what had been endured and the fierce determination to reclaim what might still be saved. Lyra spoke of her family, lost to the city's collapse and political betrayal, her words raw but resolute. Kale shared fragments of his own haunted past, the memories he usually kept locked away. In this space, their vulnerabilities forged a bond stronger than steel, a shared purpose that transcended grief. As the fire sputtered low, Kale found himself standing before a shattered window, the toxic horizon stretching endlessly below. The air tasted of ash and decay, but in his chest, a new resolve burned bright. The shadows of the past would not define him. He would lead, not just to survive, but to fight for a future that honored those lost. The iron skies darkened, heavy with the promise of coming storms. But beneath those skies, Kale's heart steeled itself. The battles ahead would be brutal, the sacrifices immense. Yet with Lyra beside him and the rebels rallying, a fragile hope endured, a hope born from the ashes of loss and the courage to face the unknown. He turned away from the window, the weight of his past still present but no longer paralyzing. The time to act was near. The fragile city trembled, and with it, the fate of all who dwelled beneath the iron skies. Kale's journey from haunted survivor to determined leader was just beginning, and as the first distant echoes of rebellion stirred through the crumbling metropolis, Kale knew one thing for certain. The past might cast long shadows, but it was the choices made in the present that would shape the dawn. The underground chamber was thick with unease as the rebels gathered, their faces etched with exhaustion and doubt. Flickering lights cast long shadows on the walls, mirroring the fractures opening within their fragile alliance. Kale stood at the center, a reluctant fulcrum balancing the weight of their hopes and fears. "We can't wait any longer," Lyra snapped, her voice sharp as the red streaks in her hair. "Every day we hesitate, Ralvik tightens his grip. We have the strength to strike now, strike hard and fast. It's our only chance." Iran adjusted his glasses, his gaze calm but resolute. "And risk exposing ourselves before we have all the facts. The government's reach is longer and deadlier than we realize. A premature strike could mean total annihilation. We need to be measured. We need evidence to rally more support." Myra watched silently from the corner, her hands clasped tightly. The scars of recent battles were still fresh, and the thought of internal discord threatened to undo everything they had endured. Kale felt the weight of their words like a physical force pressing down on his chest. His mind raced through endless possibilities, consequences, and the delicate balance between hope and ruin. "We're all fighting for the same thing," he said, voice steady yet weary. "But if we fracture now, the government wins without firing a shot." Lyra's eyes flared, but something softened in her stance. "I just don't want to see more innocent people suffer because we're too cautious." Iran nodded, his fingers tapping nervously against his worn lab coat. "And I don't want to see us wiped out because we acted without a plan." The room fell into a strained silence, the rebels grappling with their own fears and the enormity of their mission. Kale stepped forward, meeting each gaze with quiet determination. "We need a plan that balances risk with action. We expose what we must, but with precision. We protect those who follow us, not just those who fight beside us." He paused, feeling the fragile unity hang by a thread. "This is more than a rebellion. It's a chance to reclaim our world from the lies and the poison. We owe it to the fallen, to the future." The tension didn't vanish, but a tentative understanding flickered in the eyes around him. They were battered, broken, but not beaten. Not yet. Outside, the rumble of the failing city echoed, a grim reminder of the stakes. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but Kale knew the fractures in their alliance had to be mended or they would all fall beneath the iron skies. As the meeting dispersed, Kale lingered in the shadows, the weight of leadership pressing heavily on his shoulders. Myra approached, her touch a soft reassurance. "We'll find a way," she said simply. He nodded, drawing strength from her quiet confidence. "We have to." The night deepened, but within the rebels burned a fragile flame of hope. The battle for the skies and for the truth was far from over, and Kale was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. Yet beneath the surface, the fractures remained, threatening to shatter everything in their wake. And the iron skies watched silently, waiting. The stale air of the underground chamber clung thickly to Iran's skin as he shuffled through the scattered data pads, their flickering holograms casting eerie blue light across the cracked concrete floor. His fingers trembled as they traced the faded schematics of machines designed not to save, but to subjugate, experiments that had accelerated the poisoning of the earth beneath their floating refuge. Kale watched silently from the doorway, the weight of the moment pressing down like the toxic clouds that suffocated the world outside. Iran's voice broke the oppressive quiet, a low confession laced with years of buried guilt. "I was part of this," he said, his eyes not meeting Kale's. "I knew what was happening, what the consequences would be, but I was convinced we could control it, that we were saving humanity by any means necessary." Kale's heart tightened, a mixture of anger and disbelief flashing across his face. "You knew and said nothing?" he demanded, stepping fully into the chamber. "How many lives have been lost because of your silence?" Iran flinched but held firm. "I was trapped, Kale, just like you, just like all of us. But now, with you here, I want to make it right." The two men stood amidst the relics of a doomed past, a fragile bridge forming between the haunted survivor and the remorseful scientist. Iran led Kale to a hidden compartment embedded in the wall, its cold blue light revealing documents and recordings that detailed the government's systematic cover-up of the experiments. Each file deepened the fracture in Kale's trust, yet also fueled his determination to bring the truth to light. Outside, the first drops of rain began to patter against the rusted metal walls, a somber soundtrack to the storm gathering within their hearts. Cale clenched his fists, the scars of loss and betrayal etched into his expression. "This changes everything," he said quietly, "but we can't let it break us." Iran nodded, wiping a tear that had slipped down his cheek. "The price of truth is high," he whispered, "but it's the only way forward." As they prepared to leave the bunker, the distant rumble of thunder echoed through the tunnels, a portent of the battles yet to come. Their pact, forged in pain and resolve, was a fragile beacon of hope in a fractured world. Cale knew the path ahead would demand sacrifices beyond reckoning, but with Iran beside him, the fight for justice had finally begun. The chamber's shadows lengthened as the storm gathered strength, and beneath the iron skies, the fragile threads of rebellion began to weave a new destiny. Cale's gaze hardened, the burden of leadership settling over him like a second skin. The truth was out, and with it, the reckoning that would either save their world or shatter it forever. The night deepened, and with every heartbeat, the price of truth grew heavier, but so did the hope that it might yet redeem them all. The sky darkened over the floating metropolis like a brooding beast ready to strike. Thick, roiling clouds churned with unnatural speed, casting long shadows over the skeletal framework of the sky city. The wind screamed through broken girders and twisted metal, a howl of warning that echoed through the narrow corridors and shattered walkways where Cale now stood. He lifted his gaze, eyes sharp beneath the ragged hood of his scavenger gear. Above, jagged flashes of lightning split the sky, illuminating the fragile, rusting platforms that had been home to so many and now threatened to become tombs. Cale's breath came in measured bursts, steady despite the storm's rising fury. Around him, the remnants of the city creaked and groaned as the tempest tightened its grip. The early warnings had been ignored by the ruling elite, their propaganda machines drowning out the growing panic below. But Cale, now more than a scavenger, more than a survivor, knew the truth. The storm was a harbinger of collapse. He moved swiftly through the cramped tunnels, his boots echoing on steel catwalks slick with rain. The message had come moments before. A section of the eastern platform was breaking loose, trapping dozens beneath fallen beams and twisted cables. Without hesitation, Cale gathered his allies. Lyra waited by the battered hovercraft, her red hair plastered to her head by rain. Her hands danced over controls with practiced ease, eyes narrowed against the storm's sting. Beside her, Myra checked medical supplies in the cramped cabin, her calm demeanor a balm against the chaos. "We don't have much time," Cale said, voice low but firm. "That platform's about to give way completely. We get in, pull out who we can, and get out before it's too late." Lyra nodded, her grip tightening on the controls. "I'll get us as close as the wind allows. Just keep the survivors alive." The craft shuddered as it lifted, buffeted by the storm's relentless assault. Outside, rain hammered the reinforced glass with the force of 1,000 fists, blurring the jagged horizon where lightning danced like wildfire. Cale's hands tightened into fists, memories flashing unbidden. Lost family, shattered homes, betrayals etched into every scar. But there was no room for doubt now. The hovercraft sliced through the turbulent air, dodging debris and surging gusts as the eastern platform came into view, broken, heaving, a dying giant. Trapped figures huddled amid the wreckage, faces pale and desperate. The storm's rage was a living thing, tearing at exposed cables and sending shudders through the ruined structure. "Hold tight," Cale commanded over the comms. "Lyra, steady. Myra, prepare for triage. We'll move fast." The landing was rough, a jarring thud that rattled bones and frayed nerves. Cale leapt from the craft, rain stinging his eyes as he sprinted toward the trapped survivors. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and burning metal, punctuated by the distant roar of the storm. Myra was already at work, her hands gentle yet urgent as she tended to a young child with a bleeding arm. Lyra covered their retreat, eyes scanning the skies for threats amid the tempest. Cale's voice cut through the chaos. "This way, we're getting everyone out," time blurred. Each rescue was a battle against collapse and despair. Beams threatened to fall, cables sparked with dangerous energy, and the platform groaned as if mourning its own demise. Yet, amid the destruction, a fragile hope took root. The final survivor was aboard just as a massive shockwave rippled through the city, sending debris hurtling through the air. The hovercraft lurched violently, but Lyra's steady hands kept them aloft. Kale's heart pounded in his chest as they broke free from the crumbling platform, the storm's howl filling the void behind them. As the craft climbed above the chaos, Kale looked back toward the dark horizon. The storm was far from over, and the city's fragile balance was teetering on the edge of oblivion. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of something stronger than fear: resolve. "We survive," he murmured, "and we fight." The storm might rage, but beneath the iron skies, the embers of rebellion burned brighter than ever. The coming days would test them all, but Kale was ready to face whatever hell the heavens unleashed. Because survival was no longer enough, it was time to reclaim their world. Lightning split the sky again, a jagged scar that illuminated the battered cityscape below. The storm was a living nightmare, but Kale's resolve was steel. The age of scavengers was over. The age of resistance had begun. The sky was a bruised canvas of dark clouds, swollen with the promise of rain and thunder, as Kale and Lyra slipped through the jagged metal skeletons of the upper city. Their battered skiff hummed softly against the turbulent wind, a fragile vessel against the sprawling monolith of the government complex below. Neon lights flickered erratically, casting fractured patterns on steel and glass, while distant sirens wove a discordant lullaby of alarm. Kale tightened his grip on the controls, eyes scanning for the telltale flashes of enemy patrols. Beside him, Lyra's gaze was a razor's edge, her fingers twitching near the holstered pulse rifle strapped across her chest. "This is it," she whispered, voice low but charged. "Once we hit the control hub, there's no turning back." He nodded, the weight of the moment pressing deep into his chest. The rebellion had simmered in shadows for too long. Tonight, they would bring the fight into the heart of the city's oppressors. The skiff dipped sharply, weaving through the skeletal towers like a bird dodging branches. The facility loomed ahead, an imposing fortress of steel and circuitry, veins of glowing conduits pulsing like arteries beneath its surface. Kale's mind raced through the plan: disable communications, cripple surveillance, and buy time for the rebels to mobilize. The city's fragile balance hung on a thread. One false move could send it plummeting into chaos. As they neared the landing bay, a sudden burst of movement snapped their attention skyward. Sleek figures in armored wingsuits spiraled down from the upper echelons, elite sky guards responding with ruthless precision. Their armor gleamed with cold authority, and their weapons crackled with lethal energy. "Sky guards," Lyra hissed, slamming the skiff into a sharp dive. "They're tighter than we thought." The roar of engines and the staccato pulse of laser fire filled the air. Kale maneuvered with desperate agility, weaving through a hailstorm of blazing beams that seared the metal hull. Sparks showered like deadly rain, and the skiff shuddered under the onslaught. "Hold on," Kale shouted, voice barely audible over the chaos. They crashed onto the landing platform in a burst of smoke and screeching metal. Without hesitation, Kale and Lyra vaulted out, weapons drawn, adrenaline surging as alarms blared a cacophony of impending doom. Inside the labyrinthine corridors, the air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt circuitry and cold metallic tang. Kale led the charge toward the mainframe room, fingers already itching to breach the security protocols. Every step echoed with urgency, the city's fate balanced precariously on their success. "Cover me," Kale commanded, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Lyra took position at the entrance, her pulse rifle sweeping in precise arcs, dispatching guards with ruthless efficiency. The clash of weapons reverberated through the halls, punctuated by the sharp crackle of energy discharges and the shouts of combatants. Sweat beaded on Kale's brow as he interfaced with the terminal, fingers flying over the holographic keys. Lines of code scrolled past, a digital battlefield where every second counted. Almost there, he muttered, tension coiling tight in his chest. Suddenly, the building trembled violently, a distant explosion rocking the structure. Dust rained from the ceiling, and warning lights flashed red in a frantic strobe. "Time's running out," Lyra called, firing at a squad breaching the corridor. With a final keystroke, Kale forced the mainframe into lockdown, severing surveillance feeds and crippling communication arrays. The city's iron grip faltered, and a ripple of chaos spread through the control center. "Mission accomplished," Kale breathed, turning to Lyra. But the moment of triumph was shattered by the thunderous collapse of a nearby catwalk. The metal groaned and twisted as chunks of the facility gave way, sending sparks and debris cascading like a deadly waterfall. "Move," Lyra shouted, grabbing Kale's arm. They leapt onto the trembling catwalk, hearts pounding with raw resolve amid the chaos. The acrid scent of burning circuits mingled with the cold metallic taste of fear, but neither faltered. Behind them, the facility blazed with destruction, a stark testament to the price of rebellion. Outside, the sky roared with the fury of an impending storm, as the first shots of an open insurgency echoed beneath the iron skies. The fragile balance of the floating city had shattered, and the reckoning had begun. Kale's eyes met Lyra's, a silent vow passing between them. Whatever the cost, they would fight to reclaim their world. But deep within the shadows, Governor Ralvik's gaze narrowed, his austere features hardening with resolve. The game had changed, and the stakes had never been higher. The city trembled on the brink, and the battle for its soul was only just beginning.